Booster? Hey, bro. Gah! Bats! Booster! Together! Wow, well, this is great. This is just awesome.
You never said you and Booster were friends.
It never came up.
A consummate professional like you, friends with a dilettante like Booster?
You're both my friends, okay? You're more of a work friend, and Booster is more of a fun friend.
What's more fun than fighting crime?
Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books, I love talking about them, and I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the DC fan site that'll have plot, synopsis, and character bios for this issue. So we are continuing our run of Justice League International from the 80s, and this is number 14 from 1988. Story by Giffen and DeMatteis, and art by Leialoha and Gordon. So Steve Leialoha previously worked in New Mutants at Marvel. Al Gordon's been around for a while. Keith Giffen, rest in peace. That dude was a really good creator, and J.M. DeMatteis was his cohort here. After I'm done with JLI, I hope to do. They had was it the Defenders at Marvel? I think it was a 6 issue that they did with Kevin Maguire. I'm really looking forward to doing that. But we are gonna continue through their run here. I had been doing JLI for a while, and then sort of I guess I forgot, and I decided I better go back to it. So Reign of Terror says here on the cover here by Leialoha and Al Gordon here. So the Justice League International unfortunately didn't do as, despite how well done it was. DC put a bunch of characters that the majority of people don't care about. Booster Gold, Mr. Miracle, Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, Captain Atom here, and is it Fire and Ice, or I don't know. I think she's Ice. I don't remember her name, but I'm sure we'll find out inside here. And the Martian Manhunter. Batman's hardly in here. Batman's supposed to be a member. There's no Superman. There's no Wonder Woman. It's just hard to get people to go in every month and then pick up a B and D list character book. Even though Giffen and DeMatteis were doing a really incredible job scripting and coming up with these stories, it just didn't do well. But yet it actually kept churning out for goodness gracious, quite a few issues. Adam Hughes actually started out in the Justice League, this incarnation, and then Bart Sears also went through. But the biggest issue were the characters. It wasn't so much the art. It's just, again, you have to give people what they want. You can introduce to them and find out if people want that. You can do certain things, but you gotta have, you have to have, if you're DC Comics, you have to have your big guns, which is why I think Grant Morrison's run on JLA did so well. He had Superman, he had Batman, he had Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner at that time, because Hal Jordan wasn't available. So even had Aquaman. I mean, they put their big guns on JLA, and then had other characters in there. That, I think, is the winning. Brian Bendis, he decided, let's put Spider-Man and Wolverine in the Avengers. Book went crazy. people started buying it because he put two of Marvel's biggest guns. But you got to have during this era, during the same years and stuff. The Avengers lineup on Marvel was like Dr. Druid and the Black Knight. Sure, you had a little bit of Captain America kind of sprinkled in there, and Thor once in a while, but Hercules and stuff like that. And you gotta give people, you gotta put your A characters, at least most of your A characters, on an A team. You can't just fill them up with a bunch of jobbers. And you got to have the superstars. Brian Bendis understood it, and I mean, him putting Wolverine and Spider-Man on the frickin' Avengers was a stroke of genius. The Avengers should always have Captain America, should always have Thor, and should always have Iron Man, at least in combination at all times. You should preferably have two of the three, to keep the books at least semi-interesting for the casuals, okay? Because your random person just isn't gonna care about these characters. So enough of my soapbox here. I've been ranting now for 6 minutes, haven't started covering the story yet. So here we go. So we get this creature here sitting on this ledge here. And so we get here. He's been sitting here for hours watching his life being dismantled, watching his world coming apart. And now you can see things are like being lifted up here. How did this happen, he wonders. How could this be? There was a world here once, people, cities, and now there's just the hated machine rising skywards, returning to the heavens, returning. So all these things are being taken apart, going up, and we're going to get a double page spread here of everything coming to them here. And so it says, to its creators, the ship is immense, the size of a small planet, a hungry planet, an evil planet, like Unicron, which I think was around during this time. If I remember, Transformers the movie had come out around this time here, or a little bit before it. But what difference can this make you, dear reader, when the gargantuan vessel hovers on the edge of a solar system light years from Earth? Well, let's be honest. Do you think we'd be wasting our time and adjectives here if the inhabitants of this world's ship weren't going to be making lots of troubles for the Justice League? Of course not. And so we got the title, Shop or Die. So this is the stuff that made this book so genuinely unique. Now, humor in itself isn't what's unique. It's how well it was done. I think Peter David, who is rest in peace, Peter David, was such an incredibly funny writer who also could do serious material and still be funny. It was just amazing. And these two together, particularly Keith Giffen really wanted to rev up the humor in these books. It is such a different type of book. This is why I'm covering it, because I really enjoyed this book, and I collected it because I became a fan with Kevin Maguire, and I just continued picking it up and was very happy when Maguire came back. But Maguire just cannot give you a monthly book. So, all right. Inside the world of metal and machines, a strange figure observes and broods and talks out loud to himself. And so this guy says, and so our survival is seen to once again, but we can never rest. The cluster must be preserved. So speaks Lord Manga. And then he's like, I seem to be shouting. Again, the humor here. Nice little vertical panel here. And so we continue here with Lord Manga. Already, the raw materials we plundered from that world are being used to maintain our tenuous existence. And more is always needed. More, always more. And then he goes, I'm shouting again. I've got to watch that. Oh, my goodness. Tell me another comic from the big two, even during this time, that was sort of doing this. It's just so clever here. Ah, well, where was I? What the cluster needs, the cluster takes. Such ever has been our way. And so Elron comes here. Oh, there you are. What is it, Elron, my loyal servant, secretary, and lackey? And so Elron says, you've been standing here talking out loud to yourself for half an hour, Lord Manoa. And he says, so? Well, it doesn't bother me, but you do have certain responsibilities. I thought it was Manga. Did I read it wrong? Lord Manga. Or maybe he's mispronouncing it on purpose. I don't know. And so, all right. What is our status, loyal servant, secretary, and lackey? All systems at peak performance, my lord, and I wish you'd stop calling me that. And Lord Manga says, I'll work on it. How long until we must renew? The cluster is voracious, insatiable, ravenous, says Elron. How long? Asked the Lord. But, my lord, I still have several synonyms remaining. How long? He says. Very soon, but we do have a suitable new donor. I'll say this for you, Elron. You work fast, says the Lord here. And Elron says, that's why you pay me the big bucks, my lord. And besides, our survival depends on it. And so you can see him grabbing the cape here. And I think you'll find this world close to perfect. And so Manga says, its name, Elron. And Elron says, I'm taking a dramatic pause, my lord. And so he says, what is this planet's name? And Elron says, it's called Earth. But I don't suppose I really supervise anybody with that revelation. Oh, surprised. Sorry. All right. And so we are in New York, and it says here 2 weeks later, and we're at the JLA's embassy here. And so we got Oberon here say, come on, ladies. You don't think I'm going to get John Jones, leader of the JLI, the world-famous manhunter from Mars, to drop everything he's doing just because a couple of costumed cuties come in here demanding to see him? And you see here, costumed cuties, says, oh my gosh, the Green Flame. Okay. That's her name. I was like fire. So my bad. Listen up, short stuff. Tell your leader, says the Green Flame here. And Oberon's like, short stuff. He is a very what's the word now? People now, we used to say midget, but now people always like, oh, can't say that. So I don't know, little person. So, Ice Maiden says, could you inform him that Ice Maiden and Green Flame, formerly of the Global Guardians, are here to see him? And the Green Flame says, please tell him it's urgent. Very urgent. And you can see that the Green Flame has like a flame that comes from the mouth. And Oberon's like, do you think that's some kind of threat? And she's like, absolutely. And so Oberon leaves and he says, okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'll be right back with the boss. And so Ice Maiden says, you didn't treat him very nicely. And the Flame says, what do you want, politeness or results? And so John Jones comes and says, if it's results you wanted, lady, says the Martian Manhunter. And she's like, oh, it's results you've got. Now, who are you and why have you threatened Oberon? And so Green Flame says, well, it wasn't exactly a threat, more like a little inducement to action. And Ice says, we're here, Mr. Jones, because we want to join the JLI. And Oberon says, John? And he says, yes. And Oberon continues, take it easy on these gals, especially the green one. She's got a breath problem you wouldn't believe. And so now it just says here, on a typical suburban home of Scott Free. And Scott Free, of course, is Mr. Miracle, created by Jack Kirby with the New Gods here. And he says, a beautiful night for stargazing, clear skies, the air is fresh and clean. And then he says, relatively speaking here. And so he is outside here, continues thinking, when I think of my years growing up in Apocalypse, surrounded by the stench and smoke of the fire pits, living more like an animal than a man, it makes me really appreciate the life I have here on Earth. Oh, sure, some people might call it mundane, middle class, but to me, it's heaven. And so he's looking up, and speaking of heaven, and then he looks up here, and he's like, something's very wrong up there. I know the star patterns. Whole clusters should be in those positions. So where are they? And so Big Barda says, Scott, darling. And Scott kind of looks behind him and says, yes, Barda, my love. I love Big Barda. She's one of my favorite of the obscure characters. Big Barda and Firestorm are two of my favorites. And she says, you told me an hour ago that you'd come to help me with that teleporter device, dearest. He says, in a minute, lovey. And she's like, now, sweetie, or your friend's molecules are going to be reassembling somewhere in the Bayonne. And he's like, right. And so now we've got Booster Gold here, the blonde one. And I believe this is the Blue Beetle here. And so they're back at the embassy. I wish it would have just said that. That's one of the things that you should always tell the readers that we moved on, because it could be, when you start this panel, it could almost seem like they're listening in to the previous page, but no, they're back in the embassy, because that is Martian Manhunter speaking to the ladies. It says, ladies, for the last time. And so Blue Beetle says, what do you think is going in there, Booster? And he says, I don't know, Beetle, but I think we could talk those two babes into coming with us to Scott's tonight. And Beetle says, hey, this is supposed to be a boys' night. And and Booster says, but Scott's wife is gonna be there. And the Blue Beetle says, Scott's wife could wrestle us all under the table. If she wants to be one of the boys, it's okay with me. And here Blue Beetle is like, what is it with her? I've never met Barda, but what I hear, she sounds like some kind of truck driver. Not Scott's type at all. So feel free to check out the origins of all these characters on that website. But Big Barda used to be with Darkseid, and she was like leader of the Furies, I believe it's called. But then she turned on Darkseid and joined in with Scott Free. So Beetle's like, don't get me wrong, Big Barda is all woman. In fact, she's one of the most womanly women I've ever laid eyes on. But just that, well, being raised on Apocalypse and all, she's no lady. And Booster's like, I don't get it. He says, you will. Next stop, Mount Kisco, says Beetle here. God, I hate those things. Relax, Dr. McCoy. It's painless. And then he says, relatively, and then kind of laughs here and presses the button, and you can see him gulp. I would never take a teleporter. So basically, the idea of a teleporter is it disintegrates you, but it copies you, and then it reassembles you back. So that's what a teleporter does. So every time in Star Trek, someone would say, teleport me or whatever, they're literally disintegrating you and then rebuilding you. So you basically die every time you go into a teleporter, and then you hope that you get assembled back. But I don't understand, because here's the thing. I'm going to get on a thing. It would have to also have your memories. And there is no way. So even if you could get it to reassemble you, you basically would have no memories. Memories are not, they cannot copy them. So every time you teleport, you basically come out going, huh? Or no, not knowing anything. So it's a nice thing. I do not think that this is going to ever be able to work. It is a very lovely theory, but I don't think it is possible. Not because I'm not saying I don't believe that 1,000 years from now or even 500 years from now that they can't reassemble people or recreate. I mean, it's about putting things together. I do not believe they can restore memories. I don't think that is a possibility. So you would have to have your memories backed up all the time. So, all right. And so we get Elrond, I believe, talking here, giving descriptions of the Earth here. And so, it's upside down here. So giving the stats of the Earth here, water and all that. It says here, the planet is surrounded by an envelope of gases, mostly oxygen and nitrogen, which the dominant life forms call the atmosphere. And they're looking at and the dominant life form is man. Oh yes, I've heard of this a lot. Quite a confused species, but perfect for our needs, my lord. Observe, a planet of natural wonder and great beauty. But look at what they've done to it. Sprawling, ugly, primitive cities, the air fouled by pollution, the earth itself fouled by poisonous waste. Technology ridiculously crude. And so Manga says, potential problems? Only one, my lord, an overabundance of hyper-normal. And here we got Superman. And so, but it's nothing we can't handle. And he says, thank you for your report, my loyal servant, secretary, and my lord, that's Elrond you're speaking of. I'm a G-Series drone. And Manga says, oh, sorry. You fellows can look so alike at times. So that was an Elrond. I was even confused at first. So, all right. And so the guy goes, may I be dismissed now, Lord Manga? I do have to prepare. And Manga says, yes, it's just as well. I have a sudden urge to talk out loud to myself again. And he's like, you really should watch that, my lord. And he says, dismissed. Oopsie. And so sometimes I have, I don't know, this mouse. So I got a new mouse, and sometimes it doesn't seem to work correctly. So, all right. And so Manga says, with each world, the time between us grows shorter. With each world, our need grows beyond any limit we have ever imagined. With each world. And so you see this beep here. What is it, Elrond? And Elrond says, preparations are complete. And Manga says, so soon? And he says, Elrond, that's why you pay me the... He's like, never mind that, Elrond. Commence. Dispatch the drone ships. And Elrond goes, you're shouting again, sir. Ah, well. And so you see here elsewhere. So this isn't what they're sending here. You see, I'll just skip through this part here. You see like a meteor here, and all of a sudden it goes and ricochets off here. And once it's done ricocheting, it opens up. There's some strange language. And here comes not Groot. Oh my gosh, I forgot his name. Oh my gosh. So I think I want to say Groot. It starts with a G. Gnort. I think it's Gnort. And he is supposed to be comedic relief. And he is a Green Lantern. So he comes around getting up. One of the things I don't like is that this is sort of how modern storytelling also is. Even though this is from the 80s, you've got to tell people who. It's one of the things Marvel did really well. You have to give people at least you don't have to spell everything out for them, but you got to tell people who characters are. You can't just assume that they have followed every issue. Jim Shooter, rest in peace, Jim Shooter, at Marvel had a rule. Every comic book is somebody's first. Give them something so that they don't come in going, I have no idea what this is. So, all right, so he comes through. He says, sheesh, I've been flying around in that thing since I ducked in there, just as the Manhunter world blew up. About time I landed somewhere. Not that this looks like such a place. And he comes looking around. And the other thing is, it doesn't tell you what event he is referring to. I imagine it is the Millennium series that was a couple of months before this. So I'm wondering if that's what they're referring to. But again, there's no editor's notes. Marvel did a better job at this. And then Marvel was always bitching about DC was always bitching about why Marvel comic books were so far ahead. Well, they did stuff to try to keep new readers or explain things. DC not so much here. So, all right. He's like, I don't see a single mall. In fact, I don't see a single anything. Better check out with my ring. And he's like, hey, ring a ding. And the ring says yes. And he says, where am I? He says, a planet called, oh my gosh, whatever, Yakatakovia. Pretty dead, huh? Says Nort. On the contrary, it was quite alive, quite civilized until several weeks ago. And he's like, you're kidding, but how could? And so this guy says something here, and he says, excuse me, and he keeps saying something else. You mind repeating that, little guy? And talking in that foreign language. Yeah, nice to meet you, too. My name's, Gnort. Rookie member of the Green Lantern Corps. Now, you want to tell me what's going on here? And so he says, whatever, and you can see he's crying. I think this is going to take a little while. Let me try it a word at a time, okay? And so he says it, and Nort just keeps repeating it. So, and sooner than anyone would have a right to imagine. And so he's flying through. He says, gee, who would have guessed my ring could translate all that muck-a-muck? I really ought to read the manual a little more carefully. Well, anyway, if it's true that little guy said is true, then planet Earth is in big trouble. And Trouble is my middle name. And then he's like, well, actually, my middle name is Esplanade. But I've already been embarrassed about that. So like I said, Nort is comedic relief. This could be my chance to prove myself to the core. And I mean, there are a few people who think I'm actually unqualified for the job. They say I only got it because my uncle's a hotshot lantern and he called in a few favors. They say that's why I was assigned to a sector where there was no life larger than one cell. Well, I say they're wrong. I say I'm wearing this ring because I'm brave, fearless, and true. I say, shoot, hey, ring-a-ding. And the ring's like, yes. Where was it we were going again? And so, now we are in Earth here. It says here in the Australian outback, and the machines are building here. So we're gonna move. We're gonna kind of move it along here a little bit here, and so they're proceeding ahead of schedule. He's gonna inform the cluster, and so they tell Lord Manga that they're getting ready to do it. And he goes, "Let's do it." And they're like, "You're shouting again." I'm sorry. So the guys are watching a game of football here, and they're interrupted here by Elron, and I'll read this part. "People of Earth, hello. This is your old buddy Elron the robot. I'm here to welcome you to the wonderful world of interstellar barter." And the guys are like, "What?" "We trade anything you want for anything we want. It's simple, it's easy. If you play the game right, it's painless." And so Barta's like, "Is this real?" And they're like, "Yep. Many planets across the galaxies need what you have, and need what you have in abundance, and vice versa. The solution, barter. For a modest fee, we'll go as in-betweeners. Our courteous staff is waiting to serve you." And so think of the advancements that could be yours. So we start with the Russians. I hear, share your galactic resources with the family. We've got Reagan here. "This sounds communistic," says the guy. And then in the communists are thinking, "Oh my gosh, contamination from the West." Anyway, "Call it a common market of space. We're here to serve you." And so Maxwell Lord is still in the hospital, and he's like, I bet you the JLA can handle this. "You have 12 hours to respond. If you miss the deadline, we'll assume you don't wish to share your bounty. Such selfishness in this age of mutual respect must be punished. In other words, we'll take what we want and leave your world a ravaged wasteland. Shop or die, people of Earth. Offer void were prohibited." So, all right. And so they start talking, but then the emergency signal comes out. They're going to leave, and Barta's upset because they're like, "Hey, I had something planned for tonight." And he goes, "Okay, we'll be back after we save the world. We'll be quick." And so Oberon is telling Martian Manhunter that everyone's coming, and the two of them, the two ladies here, are like, "Oh man, I can't wait to get into action." And of course Martian Manhunter says, "All you're going to be doing is leaving." So, and so Lord Manga is watching things, and Elron tells them, "We have a problem." And he says, "It seems that this planet is not united under one rule. They're a swarm of separate nation states. They're a very contentious people, my lord." Nothing's changed in 2025 from 1988. "The kind that can't agree on anything. That hasn't changed. Based on projected analysis, they'll try to ease a conflict at some central meeting place called United Nations, but they'll never manage to reach a unified view. They're going to blow the deadline." And Manga says, "That is not our concern. Proceed as usual." And so we're at the United Nations, where of course things play out that way here with yes, no, this is a trick, whatever. And Steve Leialoha is much better when he inks himself. I think he should have been given the job. Steve Leialoha is also an inker here. So now we've got the JLA here because of course humans did not agree. And so the Secretary of the United Nations says, "We need you all." And "What do you mean you're shorthanded?" He goes, "Batman is something of a snit, and we can't seem to locate a black canary." So, and then he says, "We've got enough manpower to function effectively." And Red Rocket's like, "We do?" All right. And actually, Alan Moore's Dr. Manhattan is based on Captain Atom. So technically Captain Atom could be very powerful. And so Elron is like 8 hours and counting. and of course they don't think that they're gonna be able to get it that way here. So they think they're gonna die here. And John Jones is like, I swear on my life and the life of my fellow leaguers that we will stop this. And Booster's like, did he just swear on my life? He goes, can he do that? So, all right. And so at the United Nations, Ice and Flame, I'm just going to shorten their names, are just watching, and they're like, they'll come to us. And of course they do. And Martian Manhunter says, could you please come with me? There's something important I wish to discuss with you. And of course Flame is like, I told you so. So we're back in Australia here, and these droids are complaining about the work that they're having to do here. And so that's what this whole page is, just filler here. And so now we get to the moon here, and we've got a Nort here, and so this is the last page here. So I'll just kind of say what's going on, because this video has gone longer because I think I went on a bit of a ramble here, so sorry. And so he sees these ships coming off the ship, and he says, I'm gonna stop them. And he goes here, hang in there, Earth. Nort's on the way. So, and that's it, and thus endeth the issue. So yeah, JLI number 14. I'm sorry I went like on a tangent on some stuff here. So but it's okay. It happens sometimes. It's a good issue. Again, it's hard to care about D-list, and the views on these videos, particularly with the JLI, tell me that a lot of people don't care. But I'm just gonna go up until I think shoot 20 something, and then we'll call it a day with these. But I always thought that these issues were well done, and I think well worth going through. So if you notice, there were no credits on this, but luckily they were on the cover. So DeMatteis and Keith Giffen write. Keith Giffen is basically plotting, and DeMatteis is the scripter. And then Steve Leialoha is the penciler. Again, Steve Leialoha should just have drawn it himself, with Al Gordon as the inker. Like and subscribe. I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.